Good evening and happy Friday. This is Shayna from the Trade Exchange, and we are in the final weeks of earnings season. So I want to first start off with a company that didn't do so well this week. They missed on earnings and they hit lows that they haven't seen since 1972. Well, who am I talking about? Penney. So Penney missed on earnings, and they also missed on their same store sales. So their missed earnings was that they were forecasted to come in at -5 cents. They actually came in at -9 cents. Their same-store sales were also down. They were forecast to be down 1.2%. They actually came down 1.3%. They did great on revenue, though. Their revenue expectation was $2.84 billion. They came in at $2.96 billion. But it was the missed earnings and the missed same-store sales that really hurt them. So Penney is actually down 28% this week. And just this year, they're down 40%. Now, these earnings for release and this release on same-store sales, this is in contrast to many of their competitors, because Macy's, Nordstrom's, Kohl's, they all beat on same-store sales, and they also beat on earnings. So Penney did not do so well there. This missed earnings could be contributed to the fact that Penney last quarter finished shuttering 138 stores and liquidating the inventory. Now, keep in mind that was planned. They had planned to shutter these stores, and they had planned to liquidate that inventory. But Penney does have a plan going forward, and one of their plans is that they want to start bringing in an anchor. They want to move Sephora stores into the Penney location to try and traffic in a younger generation to start shopping there again. And it might be a plan that works, because I have to admit myself that I recently, just last week, was in a Penney store because I had to go to a Sephora location. So it's going to be interesting to see if this strategy plays out the way that Penney is anticipating. Again, they are down this week 28%. Let's take a look at a retailer who did great this week, on the other hand, and that is Michael Kors. So Michael Kors, you see this nice boost that they had right there. Michael Kors beat on earnings and they beat on revenue. They also raised their full quarter guidance and they raised their full year outlook. So earnings, they're forecast at 62 cents. They came in at 80 cents. Revenues, they're forecast at 918.6 million. They came in at 952.4 million. Now, earlier we've spoken about this. They are acquiring Jimmy Choo for 1.2 billion, and their CEO said that's not going to be our last acquisition. And they expect this acquisition in Jimmy Choo, it's going to help them increase their incremental revenue. But they said even if you take Jimmy Choo out of the picture, we still expect our annual revenues to increase even without including Jimmy Choo. So they have a very positive outlook for the rest of 2017. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do. But again, this week they did phenomenal. Again, up over 21%. Let's take a look at something else that did phenomenal this week, and that is our VIX. Our VIX hit highs that we have not seen in a long time. So the VIX actually hit a high this week of 17.28. Today, during intraday trading, we saw it at highs above 16. And this can be attributed to a couple of things. Well, one thing is there's been a lot of rhetoric, right, with President Donald Trump and North Korea. And North Korea had threats saying that we're going to attack Guam. And our President Donald Trump said, well, if you do that, we're going to retaliate. And we're going to meet you with fire and fury. And this rhetoric has increased. And traders that we spoke to said that they wanted to increase their protection going in for the weekend. So, of course, that's going to increase the VIX. As well as we also heard comments from Gunlack, who is the CEO of Double Line Capital. And he said that he thinks that the VIX could hit levels of 20, levels above 20. So that's very interesting. And earlier this week, on Wednesday, we actually did see some unusual option activity. It was the September 24th calls. They expire September 20th. And we noticed that over 12,000 of them were trading at 55 cents on the offer. Well, those same contracts today are trading at $1.05. So up almost 100%. Again, the VIX closed out this week at 15.51. Taking a look at our U.S. 10-year yield. Our U.S. 10-year yield didn't do so great this week. You see here it closed out 2.191. And one part of this is the CPI data came out today. And it was expected to come at 2%. It came even lower, 1%. Now the Fed, this has been a huge part of the Fed's goals, is to meet this inflation target number that they have. And as we can see here with the CPI data being released today, we're not meeting those targets. And the U.S. 10-year yield has felt a bit of the consequence of that. And again, it closed out at 2.191. Let's take a look at our U.S. crude oil. So U.S. crude oil, it is down this week. We're down 1.47% this week. We closed out 48.77. You can see right here. So keep in mind we had those meetings this week, but then the International Energy Agency, the IEA, said that this weakness in oil, it can be contributed to the fact that there's weak OPEC compliance. Compliance is fallen to 75%, which is the lowest level since these curves just began in January. So they blame this on Algeria, on Iraq, and the United Arab Emirates. And also keep in mind that Libya, who is exempt from the cuts, I have to mention, they've increased their output very steeply. So on a positive note, the IEA did say that they are increasing their demand forecast to 1.5 million barrels per day. They increased it by, and they increased that up to 97.6 million barrels per day. So on the last note, Baker Hughes numbers, we got those today as well. The total rig count is down 5 to 949. The U.S. oil rig count is up 3 to 768. But again, oil's down for the week, 1.47%. And last but not least, let's take a look at our indices. So you see here the Dow closed out 21,858, is down 1.05% for the week. S&Ps are down 1.41% for the week. They closed out 2440.52. The Nasdaq's down 1.49% for the week. It's closed out 6256.56. And gold's actually up for the week, which makes sense with, of course, this protection that we talked about with the traders. It is up 2.45% for the week, closing out 1295 even. And last but not least, we just spoke about it, the VIX closed out the week at 15.51. I want to thank you all for joining me. I look forward to joining you next week as we continue with the final weeks of earnings season. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Have a great night. Bye-bye.